Fulfilling lives don't happen just by happenstance or by mistake. They happen by design. And that's why I'm here, is to sit down with you and walk you through the journey of what it takes to develop a fulfilling life. Now, hello and happy Wednesday. If you can say that, hopefully it's hump day. We are nearly halfway through our week and where we left off. This whole series is about being able to have a more fulfilling life. But look, fulfilling lives don't happen just by happenstance or by mistake. They happen by design. And that's why I'm here, is to sit down with you and walk you through the journey of what it takes to develop a fulfilling life. Now, many Americans went through a survey, and then the majority said that they felt that their life was not fulfilling. There are aspects of their life that needed improvement. It's not a big surprise. We don't think about these things. They don't teach us about this in school. And that's one of my points is, look, you've got math and science and literature and arithmetic. All that stuff is great. But what about how to be successful in life? How to better understand ourselves first before we can go into our social world and begin to understand others. So if you remember, oh, and by the way, if you haven't started at the beginning and you're just getting here for this episode, then you might want to check up here for the card that will get you to the very start of our series. Now, let's pop back into the screen and see where this all started. Let's go. So you'll remember this slide if you were in the last episode. If not, there will be cards at the end of this video that you can click on that will take you to these sessions, because each stage of this is important. You can't start midpoint and understand where we came from and where we're going. But I mentioned in the last episode that we were going to focus in on the right side of the screen here, this area in purple, that we recognize the fact that if we want things to be different in life, we have to do things different in life. We've got to set the ball rolling. And in this case, the ball's rolling uphill because it takes effort to do these things. But I'm going to work with you to make sure that it doesn't take a ton of effort if we make micro improvements. So I'm going to use this word, Kaizen. Now, Kaizen translated means for the highest good, change for the better. And it doesn't have to be a huge project. Look, a lot of us fail to do, complete our annual goals or our New Year's resolutions because we set huge goals. In this process, basically what we're doing is not focusing on the goals, but we're focusing on the behaviors that lead us to our goals. And they can be just small incremental changes. That's what Kaizen is all about. It's many small incremental improvements, our own self-improvement or continuous improvement project. And how do we apply the practice of Kaizen to incrementally improve our lives? I promised you in the last session that I was going to share with you actions that you could take in order to move yourself toward a more fulfilling life. So let's take a look at that. We have 5 arenas within our life that matter most to us, whether we're aware of them or not. And the first one is spiritual. Look, spirituality feeds us energy, it feeds our soul, whatever terminology you may need to use. This is not a video about religion. Spirituality can be your religion, certainly. However, there are practices as human beings that we can do to keep us rejuvenated, keep us motivated, and looking forward to life. The next one is our emotional place. How do we feel emotionally on a day-to-day basis? And this is huge. We'll talk more about that. We have to learn that we are in control of our emotions. We may not allow ourselves to control them. Sometimes they control us. So we'll be talking more about that in the future. The next one is physically. Look, if we're going to function well, spiritually, emotionally, in any of these arenas, we have to have good physical awareness. So we'll talk about that more later down the video. The next one is mentally. Look, if we're not eating right, if we're not sleeping right, if we are not being fulfilled, seeking fulfillment, we're going to be in a mental fog. And how many of us have said recently, oh man, I'm in a mental fog. I can't remember things, or whatever it might be. These are all indicators that these 5 arenas, right, they're all interconnected. The next one is our social life, how we are socially. And all of these connect to how we show up to others in our social environments, or we withdraw from those social environments. Why? Because one of the outer spheres is not in balance. Now, look, I'm not talking about changing your life radically, because we know when we do that, it doesn't stay. It's those Kaizen steps, those small incremental steps in each of these areas that help get us back into balance so that we feel good about going into our social life. This is what I refer to as the medicine wheel, because this ideology or even spirituality has been among the native people of this continent for thousands of years. This is how they lived their life. This is how they stayed in balance. And I would imagine this is how they stayed so grounded to Mother Earth. Each of these are important, but how do we get control over them? What steps can we take, Dave? That's the question that's been asked me many, many times. Look, I committed to the beginning of the series to say, not only will I tell you the what, but I'm going to share with you the how. And let's dive into that. We want to achieve wholeness. So how does that happen? Well, let's take the first sphere, spiritually. Now, I split this particular one in 2 categories. One is a belief in an omniscient being, God, however we say his name. And the other is harmony with the universe. Maybe you're more agnostic. Maybe you don't believe in anything. Maybe it's science. Science, too, also backs the need for this unseen energy, this force that's within the universe. You look at it in the Fibonacci sequence and all these other areas of science that say there's something here at work that is beyond our comprehension. Others, we call it God. So what are some of the things from a spiritual standpoint that we can do to make an incremental improvement in our life? Now, the first one I'm going to bring up is prayer. Regardless of what you believe in, a conversation with the divine is very important. It allows us to take the garbage out, to give it up, and to give it to a higher being to help us with. The next is meditation, where we gain control over our own energy through relaxation and focus. And you may even use affirmations. Self-talk is so important. And in mindfulness, the subconscious is the most open. To be able to sit still in silence and allow that internal conversation to take over, because it does. It's oftentimes what keeps us from being able to sleep at night, is that we can't shut the brain down. But what we can do is change the dialogue that that brain is speaking with. Oftentimes, we're overly critical about ourselves, that we look back on our day with regrets or disappointment. We put ourselves down. In this meditation, it gives us an opportunity to forgive ourselves, to show compassion to ourselves. And this is important because how we treat ourselves is how we treat other people. When we can be more compassionate toward ourselves and show empathy, it's only until then that we can begin to show true compassion and empathy towards others. And you say, why does that matter? Because it enhances and grows our relationships and allows our relationships to become deeper and more connected. And when you have those relationships that are deeper and more connected, you're going to tend to be more happy, more satisfied. And studies have shown you're more likely to live longer. The next one is charity. Now, charity can look a lot of different ways. It could be volunteering your time at the local senior center, or going to the Boys and Girls Club in town and volunteering some of your time. It may be providing a homeless person with a meal, or maybe volunteering at a soup kitchen. So there's all kinds of different things that we can do to be charitable. You can even go online and find a reputable charity that takes every penny of the donation and puts it toward providing clean water in areas of the United States or in the world. A lot of different things that you can do. Again, I go back to volunteer. Volunteer. Find out who needs help and offer a little bit of your time. It doesn't have to be a ton of time. Go to the local library and volunteer to read a book to kids. There's so many different things that we can do. All we have to do is ask, how can I help? Maybe you love pets. Maybe you could volunteer at the local SPCA or the animal shelter. There's so many different things that we can do that don't take a ton of time. Maybe just an hour a week if you can spare it. The important thing is that you inquire. You begin that journey by the first step to find out, hey, does my church need help? Does this civic group need help? What are things that I can do to make a difference? And in a future video, I'll share with you a story that fundamentally changed my life. The next one is mindfulness. What does that mean? Mindfulness gets thrown around quite a bit. Mindfulness is a heightened level of awareness. It's our ability to be in the moment. Sounds easy, but it's not. Mindfulness takes time. Oftentimes, our brains are occupied in looking at the past, very common. And in that first session, I said, look, the past is dry cement. You can't change it. So there's not a ton of value in focusing on the past unless it is teaching you something. And it's not about the future either. The future hasn't unfolded yet. Now, I believe that it's important to have a future focus, but not at the deficit of being in the moment and being aware of what's around you, your own breath. That's where the mindfulness training usually begins, because we can listen and focus in on our breathing. And that's an affirmation for being alive. Now, the next one is art. Now, whether you are an artsy person or not, art is very therapeutic. You could go to the local art supply store and maybe pick up some clay, make some things out of clay. Play with Play-Doh. The idea here is that art allows the creative mind to kick in. And when we activate our creative mind, we're better problem solvers. We are more in depth in our decision making. And that's really important. I don't care if you go and buy a coloring book and a box of crayons. It's a release. It's time out. It's time to be creative and simply enjoy the moment. Now, when we go to the next one, gardening, look, I don't know if you're like me. I don't have the greenest thumb in the world, but gardening is a great release of stress. If you go out and even make a small garden, plant a single plant, take care of it, watch it grow. I like, like tomato plants and things like that. I like things that are going to create something that I can put on my table and enjoy and say, you know, I I helped this plant create this fruit and I'm going to enjoy it. So that's important also. The next one is just being out in nature. Nature has a way of healing us that we are completely unaware of. As a matter of fact, there have been studies about how people have been able to improve their health simply by walking barefoot on grass. It's crazy, isn't it? But there is a connection. We are forever connected to nature. It's where we came from. It's where our ancestors came from. We are connected to the earth. We've come from the earth and we'll return to the earth someday. The next one might be yoga. Now, I don't know about you. I am not very flexible. When I see yoga, it's like, there's no way I'm able to do that. But there are positions within yoga that will help you stretch your body that, just do what you can do. You don't have to go over the top. There's no way you can. Trust me. I look at what some of these people do and I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I can do a downward dog. I can do the tree, but this other stuff might take some time. The other thing that I did when I was in college is I took and wrote affirmations, positive reinforcement for myself, not based on willy-nilly stuff, but things that I knew I had strengths in. I knew that this was what I was good at. One of it was just being tenacious, by just going after something, going after and going after. And it didn't matter how many times I failed, because eventually it's a numbers game. And whatever you go after repetitively, you achieve, as long as it's realistic. I'm never going to fly, just by flapping my arms, but I can achieve things that are realistic that will make an impact, a positive impact on my life and hopefully the lives of those around me. Lastly, acts of kindness. Look, acts of kindness release endorphins in our brain. They fundamentally make us feel good. You didn't have to take anything. It didn't come in a pill. It's not in a bottle of syrup that you have to drink. Holding the door for somebody, helping an elderly person put their groceries in the back of their car. Sometimes it even boils down to just a smile. Are we mindful of the acts of kindness that we provide throughout our day? Some are intentional, but some are unplanned. Acts of kindness are very powerful. So that's my list for the spirituality side of this medicine wheel. Now, let's go on to the next. The next is emotionally. This is huge right now. Let's face it, in this stressful world, our emotions can be all over the place. There are a lot of things that influence our emotions. When we don't get enough sleep, we're irritable. That's an emotion. When we haven't eaten, we get hangry. That's an emotion. When we're not getting physical activity, exercising our body in some way, shape, or form, that affects our emotions. All these things affect our emotions, and our emotions are how we react, not respond, but how we react to our environment. When we can get our medicine wheel more in balance, we can respond rather than react. So let's talk about what are some of the things that I can do, actions you can take to better your emotional state. The first one goes back to the earlier one, mindfulness. When we begin to practice empathy and compassion toward ourselves, our emotions reflect that. What we feed or perceive in the world impacts our emotions. And oftentimes we shouldn't respond or react to our immediate emotion. Acknowledge that you're having that emotion, but try to put some space in between you and that emotion and look at it as objective as you can. I am feeling angry. Why? Because that person just cut me off. So what? Yeah, it's a good point. So what? Why am I getting so overly upset over something that I have no control over? Let me release it. That's where we need to get from the standpoint of being mindful in the moment. Meditation, taking time for silence, maybe even going and taking a class on meditation, even if it's on YouTube or online somewhere. We can get coaching on how to learn to meditate and the benefits of meditation, how it can lower our blood pressure, how it can reduce migraines, and in some cases, even eliminate them. The power of the human body to heal itself is powerful. The next one is expressing gratitude. Look at the things that you do have rather than the things that you don't have. And they may not be things, but it could be circumstances. It could be the fact that, I have loved ones, and you think of each person in that circle, family, close friends, and think of the value they bring in your life and recognize that they are there because of equal benefit to them that you bring. So important. It's something we often miss. The next one is building supportive relationships. Finding people that don't shower you necessarily with superlatives. They don't have an agenda. They simply just like you as a person. You could even ask them, what is it about me that makes us friends? I need that validation. And we all do it sometime. You may even choose a friend or a family member to sit down with and say, I want to share with you why you matter to me. That's going to make you both feel good. They're going to feel very appreciative of the feedback that you're going to give them. And you're going to feel that value of being able to give that to someone else. The next is setting boundaries. Now, setting boundaries is not necessarily limited to setting boundaries for other people. Maybe the most difficult really is setting boundaries for ourselves. Like the boundary of, I'm not going to hate myself in my head anymore. I'm not going to call myself an idiot or, stupid or any of the words that we use to be critical about ourselves. My first boundary is to be good to myself and to not allow myself to speak poorly of who I am. Look, we've all done good things in our lives and we've all done bad things in our lives. But you know what? If we focus on the good, then we reduce the opportunity for us to do or repeat past mistakes. So that's super important also. Exercise. Believe it or not, exercise has a huge impact on our emotions. It's important for us to be able to get the blood flowing, to get our metabolism moving, and we won't get quite so hangry sometimes, although that is a point where we need to remember to eat. Self-reflect. Take a look at what you did during the day. How did it make you feel? Focus on those activities that you involved yourself that made you feel good. Journalize them, write them down so that you can go back and repeat them. If you repeat these throughout your day, every day, you're going to feel better and better about yourself. But if you're writing into that journal all the mistakes that you made, it's not necessarily a bad thing. If you can sit down and say, if this situation presented itself again, what would I do differently? What would I do better? There's value in that. So that in the future, when you're faced with that potential mistake, if you want to call it that, you can respond the way you want to respond rather than react in a negative way. Expand your emotional intelligence. What's that mean? Again, Emotional intelligence really happens here first. It happens with you. It happens in how you treat yourself. And then you can begin to show your emotional intelligence towards others, understanding not only what is being said in a conversation, but where that person's coming from emotionally, and to be able to have the courage to acknowledge that emotion. The fastest way to a deep and strong relationship is through compassion and empathy. And there are courses on this. Hey, if you're interested in finding out deeper information on anything that I share, please do me a favor and comment down below, and we can get into a direct message. I'd be happy to have the conversation with you. The next one is practice self-compassion. We've talked about that already. And then engage in enjoyable activities. Find things that you enjoy. You know, as silly as it may sound, I enjoy playing ping pong or playing cards. There's a lot of different activities. I love to kick the soccer ball around, but I've been doing that for so long. Find those things in which you find enjoyment in and practice them. And if you can't think of anything that you truly enjoy, hey, I feel you. But that means you need to go out and try new and different things. Maybe take a few hours off and go to the bowling alley and try bowling. And if that doesn't work, you know, try something else. Go for a walk in the park, go for a hike. I'm very fortunate because I live in an area where we've got like 10,000 trails, and I never have to hike the same one again, although I do have my favorites. And then lastly, consider professional feedback. Look, you know, nobody gets angry because you caught the flu. Nobody treats you like you're strange when you get the common cold. We shouldn't treat our mental and emotional illnesses like there's something to be ashamed of. They're more common than we know. And look, it's not intentional. It's not something you're doing to sabotage yourself. We all need sometimes therapy in this area, even if it's simply someone who we can just totally dump on. Open our hearts and our minds and just spill it all on the table. Because when we get it out, it doesn't fester inside. These are the first two spheres in the medicine wheel that we are covering. We will be covering the next three in the following video. Now, this video is not over yet. I want to talk about why we're here again. If you started at the beginning, and these cards will be at the end so you can click on them, you liked the idea. You were attracted to the idea that you wanted to live a purposeful, fulfilling life. You wanted to discover what your why was, what matters most to you, how you want to contribute, what rejuvenates and energizes you throughout your day and the activities. Some of these things may be just small micro behavioral changes over time. Others you may be ready for, and you want to completely change the face of your life. You're ready. That's good too. But please, if you've missed any of the two previous sessions, go to the end cards, click on those, and have a great rest of your week. And I will see you next Wednesday for the Life Skills Academy at Monday Morning Cup of Joe.